Okay, I got the red smoke.
Gun runs north to south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
Hello, Jack.
Hello, Andy Stump. How you doing? Here we are.
This is the inaugural episode of Between
Two Stumps.
Two Stumps, a lot of trees with Jack and Andy.
Yeah. It's profound. We're gonna shake things up.
It's potential. There's a potential that we're going to shake things up.
Yeah. Or we might, from this, as we were discussing prior, create a whole new spin-off.
Hunting Steven Seagal.
Hunting Steven Seagal.
The key to that is he doesn't know that the series is in place.
It's like a Louis Theroux documentary.
I actually think he would lean into it.
I think if it gave him any more like airtime, or maybe a new 15 minutes, he would be all about it.
That's why he would lean in, because well, first off, between the two of us, one of us has a deep-seated hatred, but the other one has actually met Steven Seagal. That's probably the best opening.
Yeah, I did briefly meet him. It was like, but yeah, I met him at the Halls of SHOT Show in 2012 or 2013.
So many questions. Like, first off, why were you at SHOT Show in 2012, 2013?
I was at SHOT Show. My buddy just invited me. I've been shooting for a long time, and outside of the if you get past a lot of the hunting outdoorsy stuff, as you know, like SHOT Show has a lot of cool stuff to check out. And so I went and was just cruising around, and Steven Seagal was there. A friend of mine proceeded to follow him through the entire SHOT Show and was live tweeting everything Steven Seagal was saying.
I've heard he's actually big. I mean, obviously we're talking circumference, but I've heard he's tall.
Yeah, he's a pretty tall dude.
How much would you estimate that he weighed?
Back then, easily 250. Easily. It could have been more though. Like I might be, because like I get kind of fucked up with weight, because when you start adding in height, obviously that's that can drastically increase the scale. But he's a tall dude. He's got to be 6'3", 6'4", I think.
I would have liked to have met him in the days where he was legitimately practicing Aikido at a high level. He seemed like some of the old footage.
Yeah.
And it's in black and white. I don't know if that was turned into black and white with a filter, because I feel like it was at a time where color photography existed.
Probably did. And he was in Japan, and like Sony cameras dominated the world then.
For sure, right? Like, so I feel like there was a little bit of a little Lutz action, if you will, going on there.
Yeah.
He could move pretty well.
He could. For Aikido stand, I mean,
I mean, at least he was doing some things. I mean, obviously he was in the off time just jamming hot dogs in his mouth, not chewing, just straight to the gut. I feel like he could do a pack of Oscar Mayers, just like, just line that shit up Chicago Mile style.
He's a phenom though. And he doesn't get, yes, he's very funny to laugh at, but somehow he did translate his bullshit into he made a lot of fucking money.
He still is making a lot of money.
Yeah.
I've heard that he does basically 2 direct-to-DVD movies per year. Mm-hmm. He shows up at, the Blue Sky Cloud Ranch or Blue Cloud Ranch that's up in L.A., where they shot American Sniper, now that I've been there, and I did a little bit of technical advising on the TV show 6 for the History Channel, and we did a section up there, I can recognize...
It ruins it for you, right?
Oh my God. I'm like, oh, that's the room that has the one staircase, and they shot it from that, and there's the hallway, and there's the arched section. It shows up in an ungodly amount.
Yeah, the entirety of SEAL Team is basically filmed there.
Which is great for those guys.
Yeah.
I mean...
It's an easy commute.
I guess.
Better than going to Jordan or something to film a, Middle East scene.
Hard pass.
Yeah.
Do you think at SHOT Show, do you think he realizes that he's a comedian?
No. The stuff that my friends were relating to me, apparently he was handling a firearm, and he was looking at it, was all breaking it down and doing all kind of cool guy, he was doing his fucking out to kill, cover of the fucking DVD stance. And he was explaining how he felt like this weapon would be a good weapon to take a man's life with. That's what I now firsthand, I did not hear that, but I do trust the source, and it was tweeted out.
He could be one of the greatest comedians of our time.
Yeah. And that would be, if it turned out that it was all a joke and that he was just fucking riding it all the way in.
I posted something, it's a passion of mine, pet project. I spend too much time on Google looking at pictures of him. Have you seen the Steven Seagal meme?
No.
I'll send it to you later. It's a seagull with his face expertly photoshopped onto it, running down the beach. But the number of videos I've watched of him running, where he just does weird stuff with his hands. But some of my favorite, he's probably the most prolific comedian of our time, but also the most prolific liar. Because I think he was born in Michigan somewhere.
Okay.
And there's a video segment of him talking to reporters, just talking about where he's from. It's like, I'm Japanese, I'm Mongolian, I'm Russian. And it's just pop, 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 pop.
Oh, that's so cool. He's so many things.
The internet's a bastard for liars.
But like on the real, there's definitely some like Walter Mitty shit with him.
He's such a ferocious piece of shit.
God. I have spent a decent amount of time going down like weird YouTube videos of like the history of like what happened to Steven Seagal. And like, did you know about how like towards the end of his like Hollywood career, before he went straight to DVD, he became a pacifist? And in his movies, he didn't want to inflict violence on any of like, the people he was trying to kill. He just wanted to like, debilitate them or like break the wrist, walk away. And
what a bizarre move.
Yeah, and like I saw an interview with the director, and he was like, I had to, Seagal like freaked out, and I had to like really kind of like coerce him to like shoot people in the movie, and it took this whole thing where he had to like verbal judo him into like convincing it was Steven Seagal's idea to actually, this would make sense for me to shoot him now.
Have you heard in the interviews with stuntmen who have worked with him, and they basically get the living shit kicked out of them?
I have heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also heard that he has in his contract now the vast majority of his scenes have to be seated. I don't know if that's true. I'm so deeply on board with it, though.
I mean, but there's ways you can frame it to where it could just be, chest up.
Yeah.
Listen.
He's a treasure of our time.
But the fuck of it is, which UFC fighter did he teach a kick? Was it Anderson Silva?
Yes, but I also wonder if Anderson Silva was trolling him in real time.
Okay.
You have to wonder. Because I remember he was doing the interview, and he said, hey, we gotta turn the cameras off now. I'm gonna go teach him some secret shit. And I remember talking to somebody about it, because I didn't understand how somebody who actually practices the art of fighting would fall for that bullshit. And that's where the idea that he was just real-time trolling him.
Yeah.
But in Steven's mind, that's what I'm saying. Like, I wonder if he's aware. Because I feel like, not knowing him at all, that he might take himself seriously, a touch seriously.
I think he does. I think there's some spectrum shit there. There has to be.
Like, of a scale of 1 to 10, he's at a 12 of taking himself seriously.
Beyond. That guy cannot laugh at himself. I bet you if it was a thing, well, he hates you, so he clearly can't fucking laugh at himself.
He hates the Tactical Asshole Instagram page. I don't know if he actually realizes it is me. In my mind and heart, I hope that he does. Because I hope he hates me as much as I hate him, which is impossible.
You should move heaven and earth. Find out when he is coming out with a new DVD, and do a debate with him on Rogan.
See, I'm down for that.
Be the moderator.
But see, I'm down for that. The issue is getting him into that room.
He would be a fool not to. He would be a fool not to. Even if you were going to go in there and get eviscerated.
It'd be the best free marketing
ever.
God, that would trend.
It would be it would win the internet for that month.
I would just want to do a close-up of his perfectly widow-peaked hair.
That's penciled in. It's penciled in.
I've heard it's sprayed on.
That checks out.
Yeah.
Checks out.
Because I know somebody who was with him when he was taking off a necklace, and he came a little close, and it was like a hot, piece of metal through foam. And this individual was instructed to go to the car to get the kit, which was a soft gun bag, like a range bag, full of aerosol adhesive products, and then the full regalia began. Here's another question. Why not just let it go?
Yeah.
Anybody perhaps even somebody with vision similar to Ray Charles can tell that it's not real. So why not just accept it?
Own it. Just fucking own it at this point.
Good God.
Like, but there's got to be something wrong with him. I just wonder what his family thinks. Like, do you think his family are like, yeah, you know, Uncle Steve is really, he's awesome.
Depends on probably how good the Christmas presents are.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a level of tolerance, but also a 18th degree of separation.
Yeah.
Like that probably doesn't come out at the first cocktail party engagement with friends.
How many sets of nunchucks and like ninja stars has he gifted to like his like young nephews?
I wonder if in his height he had like a Steven Seagal club where if you joined you got that stuff.
Yeah.
But that was ninjutsu, right? Did he ever claim that stuff? He was always Aikido.
Yeah, he was
right?
always Aikido guy.
Like the claws that you could use to climb trees or hang upside down, which I still don't understand how that would work. But
yeah, it's I mean, you know, I'm sure in some very kind of limited scenarios there is an application for, you know, Aikido, like getting someone, like if you're walking through a crowd and pulling someone out of the way, maybe that's an application for it. I've just never seen I've never seen any street fight where someone busted out some Aikido and won.
no, at this point, I think there's too much. Again, the internet is the enemy of all liars because the volume of information is there. And you might be able to fool people for a little bit.
Yeah.
And there are some people who just want to. I'm actually shocked by the number of people who want to believe things that are clearly bullshit. And I used to think that it was because perhaps they had a lower than average intelligence quotient. And I've come to think now that a lot of people are more alone, even though we're interconnected from a digital perspective.
Yeah.
And they just want to be a part of a group. Flat Earthers are some of my... I love watching Flat Earth documentaries.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have conventions and the fact that they will clearly do a scientific experiment to prove that the Earth is flat, and it will fail in real time while they're filming it, and the level of confusion and head scratching that's going on while they have to try to internally rectify why that happened. But they'll go to these conventions, and I think it's just people who want to hang out with like-minded people.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know if even half of them believe that the shit's flat.
It's tribalism at the end of the day, you know? Like, what, up until 200 years ago, we were in some kind of, you know, tribal community, whether it was just the village you lived in or, you know, whatever. I think everyone yearns for it. I mean, that's why, I mean, I don't know. I just think, take sports, for instance. Like, if you're a, you know, 49ers fan, you will fight for someone who's a 49ers fan against a Raiders fan.
I was just going to use that same...
Yeah. It's like, that's fucking war. And you might not know the person, but you're going to go to town for that guy because he's wearing the same jersey as you.
That's true. I mean, fortunately, we're at a place now where it's not cultish at all or tribal like that.
Yeah.
We don't wear the same outfit yesterday for a super awkward picture. What do you think of the Origin Camp so far?
I'm loving the Origin Camp. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I was really, you know, I was kind of, you know, a little nervous coming here because I'm like, fuck, dude, am I just going to get my ass handed to me all week? Or
yes is the answer for everybody.
Yeah.
Except for a couple of those high-level savages out there who are delivering the ass beatings. It's a yes.
Yeah.
Resoundingly.
But it's great. I mean, we're getting like 6 hours a day of mat time.
How's your body feeling?
I'm a little bruised. You know, today's a rest day. We've been applying the CBD creams quite, you know.
Liberally?
Liberally.
I may or may not have just ordered about a baker's dozens of those. What is it called? Quanto? The CBD?
Quanta.
Holy cow.
Yeah, my buddy.
Quanta or Quanto?
I think I don't know. It's maybe
because Quanto sounds way better because that reminds me of the Schwarzenegger movie where the dude like...
Start the reactor. Please start the reactor.
Total Recall.
Yeah, great film.
The remake, not so much.
No, dude.
God, it was
they
actually
did put
trash.
the 3 titties in the remake.
They did.
But it just didn't hit the same.
I remember the first time watching that as a young man, seeing those 3 titties.
Yeah. I wonder where that woman is now. The 3-tittied actress.
God. Well, she's probably a 2-tittied actress that had a fake titty put in the middle.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's hashtag facts here, right?
Have you ever seen a third nipple on a woman?
No.
I did once as a child.
Tell me more.
This sounds kind of weird. Let me reframe that. I was at Ozzfest, my dad's festival, and there was a whole thing about like body painting. And so like women would go and bare their breasts and they would have like body paint. And I walked past the body painting thing, and there was this woman with her breasts out being painted, and she straight had 1 nipple, 2 nipple, and fucking 3rd full nipple right under it.
Did it get its own design, or how did she go with the painting?
He just incorporated it. I don't recall the painting, because I think I was too kind of amazed at the fact that this woman didn't care that she was just showing a 3rd nipple. It was very strange. But apparently it's very common.
I don't know if I would say it's very common, Jack. I would say it happens from time to time. All right.
No, apparently it's like a high percentage of women have a 3rd nipple.
For real?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm going to be Googling that shit once we get out of the Shire.
There's a famous actress that has a 3rd nipple.
Who?
I forget the name. I just remember looking at...
Don't dangle that out there and then not be able to deliver.
Hold on. Let's see. Let's see if we get any surveys out on their words. Okay.
Yeah. We're out in the Shire.
How common are 3rd nipples?
You know there's going to be full communities dedicated to 3rd nipple support.
Oh, big time.
I'm going to say less than 1%.
I think it might be more than that. Well, I think they base it in the 100, out of 100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it probably is less than 1%. But
how old were you at Ozzfest at that time, walking past the body paint?
Oh, I was probably 13.
How the fuck did you come out of that normal?
Well,
like you're 39 now, right? Or 38?
I'll be 38 this year.
How in the fuck did you come out of the other end of the tunnel with any semblance of normalness?
It was one of those things where, I honestly was getting sober. I got sober at 17. I fucking...
So hold on though, back that up. If you got sober at 17, what time did you start cannonballing into the well of just lack of sobriety?
So I started drinking and using at 14. And it was, it was fun shit, just smoking pot and whatever. And then,
do you remember how you were first exposed to it?
First time I ever saw anyone, I was always aware of alcoholism because growing up in my household, my dad was always kind of on and off the wagon. It was always an air of tension when things were going bad with him. And so it was always don't drink, don't do drugs. But I never saw my dad doing drugs. I used to see him drink. But then I first really started seeing pot use and people eating pills around 12 or 13 being on Ozzfest. Because my parents were just yeah, go have fun. And so I would walk around and I was friends.
Jesus Christ.
I had friends who were in bands and, invariably you just end up on a tour bus somewhere and, someone in a metal band is doing a bong rip and drinking a beer and then there's pills on the table and drugs and you just I was kind of I was an observer for a while because I was what is all this? And then I was everyone seems like they're having fun, so let's try it out.
That is a wild age to start experimenting with that type of stuff.
Yeah. I got my first tattoo at 15 years old when I was wasted on the back of Hatebreed's tour bus.
What was the tattoo of?
It was a heart and it said Mum because I knew she couldn't get mad at me. I was she's not going to get mad. I had Mum tattooed on me.
I feel like she did.
She was okay. My parents were really funny in the sense that my sisters... They kept a tight rein, they had a curfew, they were always really concerned about what they were getting up to. But my mom, I didn't have a curfew until I started, fucking up majorly. There were times when I was, 13, 14, I'd come home at, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning.
Good God, man.
Yeah. Not to die, I would never with my kids.
As you were saying that, I was thinking my youngest, my daughter, has just turned 15. I'm thinking 2 years ago. Holy shit, man. I'd be red star clustering, trying to get the local law enforcement. Where is my daughter?
Yeah. I used to ride my bike to the Sunset Strip to go watch bands play by myself. I'd stay out all night. It was crazy. I tell my kids that, and I'm there's no way in hell I even let you ride the bike to the end of the street to get coffee.
How far down the rabbit hole did you go with that shit?
I got into the early Oxycontin days. So I was buying vast amounts of Oxycontin and just blasting them up my nose and.
So you're crushing them up?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because they had the time release or outside protective layer,
and
right?
You flaked it off and crushed it up and just snorted away. It got pretty dark, huge mental health issues, depression, kind of suicidal thoughts. And it was at the time when the Osbournes was fucking huge.
I was just going to ask you, is this during that same time period?
Yeah.
So you had one of your sisters was on the show, right?
Yes.
How did the other one stay off the show? Did she live with you?
No, she moved out very young, right when we started filming the show.
She just wanted no part of it?
Yeah, she was at the time trying to pursue a music career, and she felt that doing it off the heels of, a show on MTV wasn't the vibe she wanted. She was like, she was very kind of, her music was very like indie at the time, and she was like,
She wanted to forge her own path.
She did, yes.
Was her last name Osbourne?
Yep.
Good luck with that shit.
Yeah. Exactly. Still trying to forge that path.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've never been presented with a choice like that. Pros and cons, live your life the way that you want to, but there are some benefits to name recognition as well.
Yeah, and even, she does release stuff and she does interviews, and it still gets brought. It's like, it's not like, why not just own it? And that's kind of where, my sister and Aunt Kelly went with it. We're like, well, fuck, like, cool. Like, this is a, and everyone always says, oh, you get to do all this shit because of your parents. And it's like, no. When you do a TV show like we did the Osbournes, it opens the door for sure, but you still got to fucking walk into the room every day and do the work.
That's the same as people leaving a military background and thinking that things are going to be done for them. It'll crack doors open, and I'll be honest, most of those doors, and I'm speaking about myself included in this, you're not qualified to actually do what is on the other side of that. Yeah. But people will extend to you the opportunity to just absolutely step all over your crank. Yeah. And then when you go back out the door, it's slam for everybody that would have come behind you with that background. It's a very tenuous balance. I've watched a lot of people get in well over their head and they don't understand why. And then the people who are the most willing to provide that opportunity, they kind of just backpedal into the forest. Yeah. As if Seagal was presented with a cage fight, he would just be backing. No. That had to have been so crazy filming that TV show at that. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of what I was doing when I was 13. I was working for my dad in the summertime, total fucking idiot at school, not even really going to class, playing like water polo and baseball. I cannot imagine that level. Because I remember watching the show. It was not a small show. No. That shit was pretty big. Yeah. It was huge numbers. I mean, it was a really kind of, I hated it in the moment. Really? Oh God, I hated it because Did your parents make the decision? No, well, because after season 1, because we didn't know what we were getting into. How did they pitch it to you guys? So Kelly and I, like, MTV would send out like MTV News during Ozzfest, and like I would be like the tour guide. So like I would show them around Ozzfest and introduce them, like, I was kind of like because my dad never wanted to do shit for MTV. He was like, fuck them. They never play my video anyway. Why am I going to do this interview? Because at this time, it was like metal was on the decline. Yeah. Everyone liked pop and like kind of alternative rock. And so my dad was always kind of an outlier with the mainstream in that sense. So MTV called us because everything we'd done for them had a great response. And we'd done an episode of Cribs that my dad refused to participate in, and Cribs turned up at the house and they're like, we're here to film, and my dad's like, fuck you, I'm not coming out of my room. So my mom, panicking, was like, okay, I guess me and the kids will show around the house. And it was the highest rated Cribs episode. And your dad was hiding. Yeah. The shots of him were like in his room, just like sat there like scouring. And at the time, you couldn't, they had like a phone number you could call in to MTV, but people would write in being like, play that Cribs video again. So MTV called us being like, hey, we want to figure something out with the family. And so we all sat at dinner one night with execs from MTV, who still I'm friends with to this day. And they were like, well, what do you guys want to do? And we spitballed, and we ended up with, well, why don't we do our own version of The Real World, but it's just in the house. And that's kind of what happened. We were supposed to film for 3 weeks, and it lost. For the first season? It was supposed to be a pilot for 3 weeks. Okay. And after the 3 weeks, they were like, there's something here, let's just keep going. And they didn't really leave for like 3 years. And during that time, you're dealing with the self-described, like, recreational drug usage, mental health. How did you deal with that with cameras in your face at an age where I barely was able to get 2 of the same shoes on my feet to go to school at that time period.
It was very tough. I mean, what I ended up doing, I just became like a party animal. Like I was going out to clubs every night. It was just like fucking.
How are you going to a club at the age of 15?
It was a different time. There was TMZ wasn't. It just was kind of starting.
That's a good point. Yeah.
There was Paps, but there was no one videotaping stuff.
But you were also clearly underage.
Yeah, dude. I mean, dude.
Nobody gave a fuck. They're just like Jack Osbourne. Welcome to the party.
There's fucking stories I could tell that would destroy people's careers as far as like.
Tell me more.
No, but like, dude, I was like underage drinking, like hooking up with girls in clubs. Dude, I was like a fucking child, like hooking up with women in clubs.
You were a child.
Yeah.
You weren't like a child. You were a child.
I was a child, yeah. But it was kind of funny and fun in the moment, and then the fun just kind of spun out. But my job was essentially, I was getting paid an awful lot of money to stay home and do crazy shit, because that's what made good TV. But
Would they present to you ideas of things to do, or did you guys kind of just live your lives?
They would present broad ideas. They'd be like, hey, why don't you guys go on a family vacation? Or, hey, Jack and Ozzy, why don't you guys go fishing? Like, I remember that. Or, can we bring in Dr. Phil for an episode because we think it'll be funny?
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, I wasn't too, like, I was not stoked on that, because we just came down and Dr. Phil was there with my parents. And he's like, hey, you guys need to rein it in a little?
Probably not.
Yeah, I was like, okay, Dr. Phil. Yeah.
How'd you know it was time to turn the corner?
I got really suicidal. I was like actively like trying to purposefully overdose. And
did you recognize that is what you were trying to do? So it was an intentional choice.
Oh, fully. It was like, yeah, I'm done with this. This is, and it's that classic thing of like the outside world thinks like, oh my God, when you're hugely successful and you've got an awful lot of money and like all this, everything must be great. And it's not, because it's I hate to use this kind of classic, canned answer, but it's very lonely. Like, I didn't really have any good friends, and no one of like true substance anyway. And I just was like, everyone's career kind of took off. My dad was touring, my mom was doing talk shows, Kelly was touring because she had an album and was really successful at the time, and I was like just alone, and it was terrifying.
At 15?
I was 17 by that point.
That's still a rough time to be alone.
Yeah.
I don't even recognize my 18-year-old self, which was when I was allowed to join the military and pursue the path that I wanted to.
Yeah.
I struggle to remember who I was at that time and the way that I thought.
Did you join right at 18?
17. I actually joined when I was a junior in high school through the delayed entry program, but you still have to wait until you graduate and then turn 18. It's a great deal for recruiters because they're like, yes, made it for this month.
Yeah. So wait, you went and enlisted and then you became an officer?
Yeah. 12 years enlisted, 5 years as an officer. Wow. Not like a real officer. I mean, I had a uniform, but I didn't do any officer type things.
Did you have
like
nice
Jocko.
Hat?
I did. Jocko had like a fleet. He doesn't tell anybody about this, and I don't know why, but he had a fleet of enlisted men that followed him everywhere for like tea service, coffee.
Jocko was an officer?
Meals. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He was, yeah.
Wait, so he had
an enlisted driver. He had guys who to do his uniform, meals. None of this is true. Just you looking at me like I'm being serious.
Wait, they gave you slaves?
I don't know how familiar you are with military service. A lot of it could be parallel to indentured servitude. Difference being it's voluntary up front.
Okay, yeah. That's where they get you, right?
Yeah. So how did you get yourself out of that?
So I ended up, my mom, I was supposed to shoot a pilot for MTV. And I didn't.
A standalone?
Yeah, like my own spin-off show. They were like, "Hey, we want to give you your own show," and it was going to be called Jack's Midnight Munchies, and it was going to be a cooking show where celebrities came on and they cooked their favorite munchies when they're like, "This is what I cook when I'm high as fuck."
Okay.
So it like predated all of like Snoop Dogg stuff and all that he did. I was like,
it would have done well.
It would have.
Yeah.
And I just didn't show up to the pilot. I was at my parents' beach house just getting fucking blitzed. And so my mom sent down, she'd had a couple calls from people that I was like partying with, and they were like, hey, like, yeah, we party, but like Jack's kind of going to the dark side of the force with this, and like he needs help. And so my mom sent down like my uncle, who we don't speak to anymore, and like 2 security guys to be like, you're coming with us. And at this time I was 17, I was fucking like 200 25 pounds, big fucking afro, acne all over my face, just like a drunk mess blob. And I took off running down the beach, and I was not a runner.
So several yards later, they caught you.
They actually didn't. I actually somehow. And I ended up at my friend's place, and he's like, hey man, I've dealt with this before. He's one of my dear friends to this day still. He ended up getting sober sometime later. And he's like, we'll stay sober for the weekend. You'll turn up at your mom's house on Monday, and you'll be like, hey, listen, I don't have a problem. I was sober all weekend. I'm good. Look at me. I'm not like fucked up. That lasted maybe an hour. We were like doing sake bombs at a sushi restaurant down the street, and then that was just a blackout weekend. And I like woke up in bed with this woman, and she was like, I'm a little older than you, and you might want to like check yourself. She's like, that was scary. And so I came home and was like, all right, well, let's give this a shot. Let's see what happens.
Were you open with your parents about the suicidal ideations leading up to that point?
No, it was after, like, once I kind of checked in and was in, like, a stable place and kind of wanting to start to kind of get honest about, like, where I'd actually gone with shit.
Yeah.
That's when I kind of opened up about it.
What were their thoughts on drug and alcohol use when you were younger? I mean, obviously your dad was rolling in circles where that, like you were saying, you were on tour buses. I don't know anything about the rock world. I've had a few touch points, and they all kind of say the same thing. It's just like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Back then it's a much different environment now. But back then when I was, in my teens on Ozzfest, it was fucking nuts, dude. Like, there were times where, like, I mean, it's one of those things too where you're like, wow, hindsight, you're kind of like, wow, that's really fucked up. But like, you'd walk into a room and you'd see like guys banging out groupies and like drugs everywhere. And it's like, there was really the extent that people would push shit back then was fucking gnarly. Like, when you hear stuff today about like celebrities getting outed and busted for like crazy sexual shit, you're kind of like, I'm it's like, oh my God, that's terrible. But I'm also like, fuck, man, like, it was way darker than that years ago. Like, it was crazy. I walked into a dressing room one day, and a tattoo artist was tattooing a chick's asshole.
What was the design?
I believe it was a butterfly around her asshole. She was spread open. Dude, I was a fucking child. Like, me just being in there alone was fucking illegal.
I have so many questions about what might have led up to that choice. Why a butterfly? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
I would have gone with like a serpent's head or a dragon or something. When you get a hold of like the airport ceviche and it just works.
Breathing fire.
The dragon's at it again. That's weird. The butthole butterfly?
Yeah. It was.
That would be a good rock album name, though.
Yeah.
Butthole Butterflies?
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good grunge band from the 90s.
Fuck, grunge indeed. My God.
Yeah, it was fucking...
So did they kind of expect that you were going to dip your toes into that pond?
I don't... Maybe. I think there was always... But I could always kind of play it right. And that's a common thing, I think, with addicts. It's like, we can put on the front to kind of hold it, for a time. You can like keep the walls from caving in, and I would show up to stuff, and man, there's one time I went on Howard Stern. It was 2003. I was up all night and I drank an entire bottle of Patron and stayed up all night partying, destroyed a fucking hotel room at the Peninsula in New York City. Like, it was trashed. And there was a knock on my door at like, because you had to get there at like fucking 5:30. And, hey, got to be downstairs. And I'm steamingly fucking drunk on Howard Stern at like 16 years old at this point.
Good God.
Yeah.
I have to assume you probably recognize that.
Yeah. Having kids, I'm just like, what the fuck? And I guess my parents were just so... they weren't happy. I would get in trouble for drinking. Like, they would try and reprimand me. But at the point that we'd done the show, dude, I was getting paid millions of dollars. So they couldn't really do anything.
Yeah. God, that's a weird power dynamic that almost nobody would ever experience with their kids.
Yeah. because I had a credit, I had a fucking Amex, a debit card, a fucking passport. I could have literally just been like,
gone anywhere.
I'm going to fucking Switzerland. Like, you can't come find me.
So how'd you get out of it? What path did you take?
So I went into treatment, and it just clicked for me. You know, going back to like the tribalism stuff, like that tribe, like sobriety, you know, a 12-step recovery, it made sense to me. Something about it was like, oh, okay, like let's give this a shot and see what happens, because the direction I'm going on right now sucks, and this way can't suck any more than, you know, the sober way can't suck any more than the drunk way. So like, fucking, let's see what happens. And I was really lucky, man. There was a bunch of guys my age I got sober with, so they were all kind of 17, 18, 19, all from very different backgrounds, but I just kind of fell in with a really great group of guys in LA. And I think that was a big part of it, was having that kind of young kind of, and I'm sure you could relate to that to a degree, going into the military, like guys your age, and you're like, oh, we're all in this kind of thing together, finding our way. We don't know where the fuck this is going to lead, but you kind of have this bond, and I did, and we all kind of, at times when we couldn't stay sober for ourselves, we stayed sober for others, and it worked. And after like 2.5 years of just being like a 12-step nerd and doing meetings constantly and working with other people, I was like, all right, like now what? And that's kind of when I started like venturing out and trying to kind of figure my own path.
How long did it take to get through the physical symptoms of the addiction? Because I've heard that the oxy route has like deep fishing hooks that gets into people.
Yeah, it was the first like 10 days, because I was put in like at the time they couldn't detox adolescents from opioids outside of a hospital. Really? Yeah. So like early 2000s, they didn't have there was no real adolescent detox program, so I got put in a child psychiatric facility.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was wild.
Interesting conversations, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, and like I know how people say like you can't be schizophrenic and under 18. Like there was some like teenage schizophrenics, and it was really weird to see. But yeah, it was a real blur, because I was heavily kind of medicated through the detox, so I wasn't so I didn't have seizures or. Oh,
so they had to give you other meds to get off of the drugs that you had been taking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shit.
So I was in like a very much like a one flew over the cuckoo's nest kind of state. I was just a lot of the time, and it was the weirdest thing, the way time would move, like on these meds. Like everything was moving so fast and so slow at the same time. Like wow. I would just kind of sit in like a vegetated state, and I could watch the clock just go da, 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 and just spin. It was fucking nuts.
God,
and I would get these weird like. The tremors are weird, because like you cannot, it's not like shivering from being cold, it's just like your body just won't stop moving.
It's like coming out from your soul, essentially.
Yeah, it was a trip.
How long was it until you started feeling like yourself again?
It was probably, because I was in for about 60 days in a program. It was probably like day 45, I was like, that's when I started to kind of go, okay, I'm into this. I'm committed to this. I don't want to, like, I'm not just saying it now. Like, I feel like I'm in. And then it was, so it was like 45 days. And then, they kind of keep you around just to make sure you're not bullshitting. So, yeah. And then I went home and just dove in. So it was 45 days. I felt like I'd kind of right-sized.
How are you going to talk about drugs and alcohol with your kids? Like, what's your philosophy going forward?
I still go to meetings, and, at times I've brought my kids to meetings. It's something I'm kind of open about. And if anything, I would want them, they're going to do drugs. They're going to drink. It's the world we live in. It's everywhere.
Parents who tell themselves that they can keep their kids in that bubble and that they're not going to experience all that. Like, you're going to get exposed to drugs, sex, alcohol, hopefully not all three at the same time, because that's a rough decision-making matrix.
Exactly, yeah, that's a poor choice.
Yeah. But it's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, well, how did you got older kids? How did you do it?
So I have 20, 18, and 15. I have always done my best to maintain an open dialogue.
Yeah.
to me, that is the most important thing, being able to have a conversation with them. The one thing my parents said to me when I was growing up, when I was young, they're like, listen, if you ever call and say, hey, I need you to pick me up, we'll be there like that. And we're not going to talk about it that day. We are going to talk about it at some point, but I always knew that I had that backstop, which of course I never used and tried to pretend like they probably didn't have any clue what I was up to. And I'm sure that they were like, what a fucking moron, going through the same shit that every human being is going to go through.
Yeah.
So I have been with my kids, whether it's sex, drugs, alcohol, relationships, whatever it is, I just try to maintain an open two-way communication. And sometimes it's me leading the conversation a little bit or just asking them about it. And, you know, another thing, my parents, when I was, what was I? So I was still in Buds. We were getting ready to go out to the island. There was like a 4-day weekend. And I drove up with some buddies. And my dad had like Costco flats of beer. And my mom was so pissed that my dad was going to sit out there and drink with us. And we just sat outside and drank them all. It was like the old school, it was like a, sort of like a Dutch beer that had like the little porcelain top and you pop the thing open. But my dad's theory was, I would rather have you have this exposure here in an environment that is safe. And his theory was, he was, you know, prior military, his theory was, if you're old enough to join the military, you're probably old enough to have a drink. Mm-hmm. He's not advocating me going out to the bars, but he's like, hey, you're bringing guys from your Buds class. Sit down, gents. Like, welcome to Santa Cruz. My mom was fucking heated. He was just like, whatever, we can argue about this later.
So how old were you then?
Maybe 19 tops. Now, it wasn't my first exposure to alcohol, let's be very clear.
Yeah.
But it was the first time I ever had a beer with my dad. I would so much rather them be comfortable talking to me about their experiences, their exposure, and their mistakes if they view them that way, because I'm more than happy to talk with them about mine. Like, I will be brass tacks honest. And I just think making that portal of communication available is so essential, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Because what you want to do when you hear some of these things is just, you fucking idiot, why would you do that? And if you do that, they'll never tell you shit again.
Yeah.
You have to sit on some of this stuff, and some of them I'm literally wondering whether or not they can see my teeth through my lip as I'm just like,
yeah.
And I take a minute, and we can talk about it, but I can't live their life for them. And I have found through my peer group growing up, the parents that push them so hard in the other direction, they did a running cannonball into the pool. Mm-hmm. It almost seems like it was like a rubber band being stressed to tension and then whack.
Totally.
Versus just, hey man, this is what you can expect if you do this. And you know, one of the things with my kids, I know that their peer group drinks. I know that they go to environments where there is going to be drinking. Like, one of my big things is just please do not drink and drive. Yeah. I will fucking come get you anywhere, anytime. Do not get behind the wheel of a vehicle, and don't get in somebody else's car.
Do you have Uber in your town where the kids are?
There's 3.
Okay.
Kalispell, it's not a big deal. Steve, Tom, and Frank are the... we have Uber.
Okay.
I'll call it Uber Light.
Yeah.
Limited pool.
Okay.
It's not LA.
Yeah. Yeah,
there's not a bank of the Uber Blacks circling the fucking LAX airport at all times.
That's definitely, I think, a saving grace for that with kids drinking now. Like, I do feel like there's a lot. Because I remember when I was in high school, you were hearing about kids. There was one incident with another high school in the area where I was at. Like, 5 kids died in a drunk driving accident.
Every year, it's going to happen. There were, first off, kids at that age are going to do dumb shit anyway. You put on that a substance or a fluid that's going to, reduce their inhibitions.
Yeah.
Fuck. But every year, up there, and so when that stuff happens, hey guys, like, how could this have been avoided?
Yeah.
Not going to judge you to your face. And I actually don't have judgment of them not to their face. I just have an immense amount of concern that I don't have the vocabulary to describe.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah. How dare you drink in high school? They're like, well, I need to go look in the mirror here for a second, because,
Would you ever, like, if your kids came to you being like, hey, Dad, I'm really curious about mushrooms, would you be like, all right, if you want to take them, fucking just sit in the backyard and I'll make sure you don't fucking run into traffic?
I'd be a bad resource for that because I have no experience with psychedelics.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would respond to that. If the choice was, if they were truly curious and they wanted to do that, I would always opt for a controlled environment versus an uncontrolled environment. And I'm not saying that that's the correct parenting approach, but that's, there's the dilemma. You're choosing between two relatively poor, what you can consider to be a poor decision. I know there's a whole bunch of debate about what, the medicinal use for mushrooms. We both know people who have gone the psychedelic route for treatment from my old profession, and I think I've talked with you about this. My concern is it becomes more about the psychedelic than the actual treatment itself, because they become goddamn cosmonauts through space. And they still have all the baggage. Like, their luggage compartment is totally full, but they're just some cosmonauts.
Bouncing off the rings of Saturn.
They're like, hey, man, I'm so enlightened. I'm like, you need to shut the fuck up.
I don't need shoes anymore.
God. I'm just going to hug this tree for a bit. Cool. So the dilemma is, what do you do as a parent?
Yeah.
Fuck. I mean, for the safety of my kid, I would rather try to be there to try to, like, be the soft barrier to that, as opposed to going out in the wild and doing it with some shaman whose real name is Frank. I'm Botswana. I was like, shut up, Tom.
Yeah, you grew up in fucking Brentwood.
Yeah, shut up. You fucking clean pools from Monday through Friday. There's nothing wrong with cleaning pools, but I know a couple people who have become almost like recreational shamans.
Yeah.
It's one of the things about the veteran psychedelic treatment that there is that barrier to having to go out of the U.S. And I know people who will host these like retreats at Airbnbs. Mm-hmm. And they'll get a bunch of people, and again, I have zero experience, but they're talking about laying out in lawn chairs by the pool, and I'm like, I don't know a lot, but maybe that's not a good combination in and of itself right there. I don't know what this shit does to you. Like,
you fall in, who's going to rescue you?
It's like, yeah, they're like, oh, I can breathe underwater now. It's like, no, you can't, though. So, parenting is tough.
It is.
It gives me appreciation for what I put my parents through. Yeah. Holy shit. I remember being my kid's age, and my parents would never understand how I feel. They've never gone through the shit that I've gone through. Having said that, though, there is a little bit of truth to that when it comes to the social media stuff. Mm-hmm. Holy fuck. I don't know how well I would have done if I had social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do know I probably would be in jail for the things that come out of my mouth. Not that there's a jail for the shit that comes out of your mouth, but I would have had problems.
Well, there's social jail.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's, it is a... Parenting now, I feel weird because I still feel like a fucking child, but like having kids, it's like, it really is for me that level of like, oh wow, like you have to parent differently for all three. Yep. I have 4, so every one I have to have a different style of parenting.
And you have a boy-girl split too, right?
No, all girls.
Really?
Yeah. I got the player's curse.
Oh, dude, your life is pretty much over. That's so horrible. You're never going to be on the right side of any argument. And they're all going to gang up on you. You're so fucked, Jack.
I know. The cool thing is, though, here's what I look forward to. At least one of them will take care of me when I'm an old man.
Yes.
At least one.
If not all.
Yeah, which is great. Cool. I got built-in retirement care.
Yep.
My eldest and I were really, really close. She's my fucking, my ride or die, like, with thick as thieves. And the cool thing I just love about her, she's so brutally honest. She's so like doesn't like if something happens, like she doesn't lie about shit. She's like, and because when she does lie, I fucking lose it. I'm like, if you lie to me, we have nothing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my thing with the kids.
That's one of my hard and fast rules too. It's if you tell me the truth, if you give me enough time, I'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
And if you lie to me, I'm actually going to be more upset about the fact that you lied than probably what you lied about. Just tell me the fucking truth. Easier said than done, for sure.
Oh yeah, because it's, I think there's so much fear of shame and, and having to, and kind of going back what you were saying about being upfront with having your kids be upfront with about stuff. It ultimately comes down to, I want to create an environment where they never have to fear shame. Yeah. Because that leads to shadows in my experience. Feeling like you can't be yourself or what you did, causes someone to want to shame you. It's like it sucks.
Well, now we have the perfect devices to shame people at all times. People you've never even met. They're not even in your social circle. You're like, well, I hate you as a person, so I'm going to just bombard you 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of haters for you, like with you?
No, I don't. I get some people who violently disagree with my thoughts on things, which I actually appreciate. I think that if we live in a place, in a society or a world where everybody thinks the same way, that's not good at all. And I can understand where people don't understand where my perspective comes from. Like, I had a very bizarre, younger life to a degree, and I get that, and I don't expect people to, but I also don't Like, don't get me wrong. I love trolling people on the internet, but I'm generally as polite as possible. And I find that oftentimes they'll kind of respond in kind. It's not that crazy. Plus, the block button is an amazing tool.
Oh, yeah, it's awesome.
Like, a lot of that shit requires participation of two parties. Just cut the rope or let it go. Whatever fucking metaphor you want to use. If somebody's talking about, just let go of the fucking rope and just, maybe it'll bother you and maybe you'll think about what they said for a while, but I guarantee if you put the phone down and just go live your life, you're going to forget about it. Who gives a shit? Like, I worry about people who I care about what they think. Everybody else can kind of eat dicks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the exact way to navigate the world. It's like, if I don't fucking know you, what do I care what you think about me?
So what are you up to now?
So, other
than looking for fake ghost shit, you know?
So I do a lot of work for Discovery Plus, and I do a lot of paranormal programming. So we do like a lot of ghost hunts. I've had a lot of weird experiences.
Bigfoot, real or no?
Okay, Bigfoot. It's a tough one for me. How dare you? I've interviewed many people that are like, I fucking saw something, and one guy in particular always sticks out to me. He was a bear hunter up in Idaho, and spent a lot of time. And he was a lumberjack. So this dude spent his whole time in the forest.
The woods, yeah.
So he knew what a fucking moose looked like, a bear, a fucking elk. Knows the woods. And he was saying, him and his wife, he was a veteran. He was, they were coming down a fire road and they're side by side. And he said he came around this corner and he looked and this fucking thing is looking at him. Stood on two legs, peeking at him from around the tree. And he thought it was a bear. So he brings up his rifle because he's like, sweet, I'm just going to fucking drop this thing. And he looks and he said the thing just is like blinking at him. And he's like, it didn't have bear ears. And it was like kind of peeping around. And then as he went kind of further around the corner, he fucking saw this giant 8-foot thing. It turned around and ran like downhill on two legs. And he's like, bears don't run downhill on two legs. They can't.
People in costumes do.
There is an absolute fucking, if it's anything, it's someone in a costume.
There are millions of game cameras out there at this point. Obviously, there are areas where game cameras are not, and that is where people generally point to the Sasquatch being, because that's the only plausible explanation. I don't know. I feel like it would have been caught on a game camera.
I agree. And that's always been my thing, is like where there's animals, people will go and hunt it.
Yeah.
Even in the deepest, hardest to get to parts of the fucking country. But yeah, there's something to it. And I'm maybe realistically, what if it's a secret cabal of people that just go fuck with people? Like that's like their weird secret society.
I would join that.
Yeah.
Problem being the firearm in that story.
That's the only thing that concerns me. Well, that's what I said. I was like, didn't you want to shoot it? And he goes, I didn't know what it was and I didn't want to get in trouble. For me, I'd be like, man, bear, pig, boom.
I mean, the real question is, so you dump it, you walk off, it falls over, the head of the mask has fallen off, and you're standing over somebody you just murdered. What do you do? That's a podcast subject for a different episode. Maybe that might be the second episode of Between Two Trees. But yeah, UFOs, real or no?
I think there's definitely something.
I hope so.
Oh, they're fucking without a doubt. But the stuff I think coming out from the government, I believe to be psyops. I believe it's all...
I would agree. So, and I land on this one. If they have the ability to travel through space and time to get to where we are, our ability to understand the known universe appears to be limited in its scope and scale. But we can see out there a little bit. So they have an advanced ability from an engineering perspective, navigation perspective, all of those things. Why do they always crash when they get here?
Look at it like I actually have this.
It's like they can travel all that distance.
Yeah.
But you can't fucking fly the ship around Earth. Like, why are you always crashing when you get here?
You were a pilot. Think about how many successful flights there are daily.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Every now and then, one fucks up.
Usually it's some fuckboy, though, who put his plane together in a garage. You know, and most of it is general aviation. Most of the aviation...
Sure.
Accidents are in fact GA.
Yeah.
Like there's a catastrophic commercial...
Unless they're flying a Boeing Supermax.
Correct. Then...
Or Max, or whatever it is.
They went through a very period of a bar graph of... But other than that, I mean... And I don't think that the spacecraft... It probably would be their NASA, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. So it's not a general aviation enthusiast up there. The number of times that they seem to crash when they come visit these monkeys with sticks and nuclear bombs seems to be inordinately high.
Maybe it's not, though. Maybe the volume of fucking traffic we're getting here is millions. And every now and then, it just fucking one accidentally decks out.
I mean, people's view of themselves in the universe, we as a species have aquariums and like zoos where we go to like look at stuff. Why is it so hard to believe that somebody else would want to look at us that way?
I totally believe it.
We're fascinating.
And every year they're like, oh, the universe is bigger and older than we thought. Oh, there's more. I read this years ago. They said there's more stars in the galaxy than there are grains of sand on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Like, why would anyone think we're alone? Now, whether we're...
Because we're very self-centered.
Yeah.
We're hardwired to be self-centered and self-serving.
That's what always fucks me up about when you see, like, Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about it. You're like, dude, why would you think that it's just us? Just because we haven't found evidence doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's frustrating that, like, academia gets so... Like, I think so much of our our knowledge evolution has come from wild ideas, but now it seems like a wild idea isn't acceptable anymore.
Is the Earth flat around?
Fucking round.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I've flown around it.
Look into it, bro. What else is a good conspiracy theory? Twin Towers, inside job or airplanes?
I think both. I think it was, they knew it was going to happen, they let it happen, and they assisted some of the buildings.
Okay.
Like it was like a...
From what I know of the government, they're widely incapable of doing something that scale secretly, but...
But what if it wasn't the government? What if it was now private sector?
A shadowy cabal?
Yeah, like private sector is capable of pulling some fucking crazy shit. I mean...
Yeah, man, that one was at such scale, though.
Building 7, though, man, I don't know. Like, you're a highly intelligent person. Like,
I actually haven't gone down the rabbit hole on that one just because almost always when people are so just, like, you have to go do this, and you have to go do that, the likelihood of me actually doing it is almost nothing.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
It's why I avoided doing jiu-jitsu for so long. I heard about jiu-jitsu so long ago, and people were so fucking dogmatic about it, and you have to go do this, and I'm like, please go talk to somebody else somewhere else about doing this.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, why didn't I do this years ago? I'm the exact same way. It's funny. It's like I have this something about me. If something is mainstream, if something is like pop culture, I put up a wall to it and I'm like, I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah, almost always to my own detriment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do exactly the same thing. What is it that you're doing now that you're the most fired up about?
So we're starting something called Osbourne Media House. I think just like yourself, like COVID taught us a lot about having to rely on outside sources for, income and like relying. And, I've been working in TV for 21 years now. And I see the writing on the wall. Things have definitely changed, and we've got the strikes happening, and it's really affecting the non-scripted world, surprisingly. So we're launching something called Osbourne Media House, where it's going to be part of it's going to be free content. Other content is going to be behind a paywall. But everyone in the family is doing their own podcast, and then we're doing a podcast, the whole family together.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
When does your personal podcast come out? Because I know you got some episodes in the can.
Yep. What is it? It is October the 13th, Friday the 13th.
Okay. What did you end up calling it?
Ghosts and Grit.
It's a terrible name.
I know. Well, it's kind of what we talk about. We talk about like tough things and ghosts.
There had to be some way to tie like jack off in there.
Well, yours is clear and hot.
It's cleared hot.
Cleared hot. Okay.
Which actually means something.
Does it?
Yeah. Ghost and grits. What's that mean? Nothing.
Ghost and grit. It's like, hey, we talk about ghosts and we talk about tough
grits.
things. Yeah,
It'd be better if it was Ghost and Grits.
I'm trying to get a sponsorship from a grits company.
I think we can probably make that happen. I know absolutely nobody in that world. No, Cleared Hot's a radio call. It's the last call you give before they start nuking shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like actually nuking or just dropping bombs?
They don't let us, I would not want to be a controller on the ground when they're dropping a nuclear bomb.
How does that work? Is there like a kind of TAC P? Can they call in a fucking...
TAC P or JTAC? No, man, I think... Dude. People can Google this. It was called the SATM. It was a man-portable nuclear device.
Yeah, backpack nuke.
Yeah, and they'd be like, got a 20-minute timer. Sure it does, buddy. You're going to see a fucking glow when you arm that thing. What are you going to... You better have your running shoes on, because you're just going to fucking melt 20 minutes down the road exhausted.
I went to the Atomic Bomb Museum in New Mexico, and they had like a defunct like casing for it there.
Yeah.
It was huge.
They used to jump that fucking thing, and they did test jumps with it. I'm sure there's probably nuclear level type missiles. I don't know. I feel like that would require such high level of authority, but it's a very synchronized back and forth on the radio, and you can do it in ECAS or emergency CAS. But it's going to be a 9-line or a 7-line, and the last thing, it's basically saying, hey, when you're talking to the pilot, the ground control, and you're telling them that they're cleared hot, you're accepting the responsibility of the ordnance that comes off the wings. So it goes through all of this stuff, the angle you're going to come in, identifying yourself, identifying the target, all of that shit, and then the final call is cleared hot.
Cool.
So,
have you called out cleared hot before?
I have. Yeah, it's awesome. Shortly thereafter, when things just vaporize, it's my favorite radio call. It's like, hey man, if you want to shoot at me with that gun from a distance I can't really shoot back at you from, this fucking A-10's about to drop some heat right on your face. So
that must have been fun.
There were aspects of it that were fucking awesome, and there were aspects of it that sucked, too.
I tried to join the Air Force in 2008.
Yeah, your prior drug use might have been an issue.
It wasn't the drug use, because it was under the age of 18. It was my tattoos.
Really?
And then the recruiter said, I took the ASVAB. He was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I wanted to go be because at the time I'd been doing a ton of skydiving and climbing and a bunch of shit, and I'd become a reserve cop. And I was like, I want to maybe try go be a PJ.
You would have quit the pipeline, I think.
Probably.
I don't feel like it's in you.
Probably. But I they were like, yeah, tattoos, no dice. In 2008 or something.
I don't think they give a fuck anymore about it. I mean, like, obviously, you're not going to go in with, like, a face tattoo, but, I mean, it's kind of standard issue after, like, a decade in the teams. You need to have full sleeves. Yeah. Which is,
How did you ever do you have a tattoo?
I have just the frog tattoo on this arm. And
Is that because you were a frogman? Is that why?
Yeah, I was one of the only people who've ever gotten that tattoo.
No trident? No trident tattoo?
No, you're going to get a trident tattoo that needs to be on the butthole, working your way up underneath, just straight onto the shaft. Yeah. What do they call it when the water splashes in the toilet when you take a shit and hits you in the butt? Neptune's kiss? It's going to
Neptune's kiss?
It absolutely has to fucking be that way. I got to make sure we still have time to get lunch.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, my God. Oh, we have a half hour. We're totally good. Yeah, Neptune's kiss. Throw that in your vernacular. It's the sweetest kiss of all.
Neptune's kiss. That's a good one. I'm definitely I'm going to pop that one on my kids.
There's I'll send you a meme. It's in action where it's like a drop comes up and it goes right on.
I've seen it. Yeah. I've seen that. Do you ever... Wait, speaking of that, phantom poos. You ever have a phantom poo? Where you take a shit and then you look in the toilet and nothing's there? Because it just fucking rocketed down.
Oh, you just found like the correct angle for the trigonometry that's gone?
And it just fucking luges out down?
No.
You're like, wait, what just happened?
I have not.
Oh, yeah, dude, phantom poos.
Okay. That's the first I've ever... Has that happened to you commonly?
I feel like it happens more in England, and I think it's because of the way the plumbing is over there.
You should probably have more greens in your diet. I don't know if they're supposed to come out ready to luge like that. I've heard you need to go for aircraft carriers, not submarines.
That's the sign of good health.
Yeah, that's how you have enough greens. Yeah, you're not supposed to be just launching out fucking rabbit shits or cylindrical metal tubes that are going luging.
This podcast took a turn.
That's the beauty of having a podcast. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. What's been your favorite guest you've had so far?
I had a really great conversation with Neil Strauss. He's a writer. He's done some really great books. Tyler Gray, good friend of ours. You were there when he got blown up. We talk about that. We talk about you.
He was actually there when I got shot. I wasn't there when he got blown up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was on my target. I wasn't on his.
Oh, okay. Is that how it works?
So we were separated by a door.
Wait, so you got shot the same day he got blown up?
We shared a hospital room in Germany.
Wow.
It was the same target. I was in the courtyard outside. He was in the hallway inside.
Fuck.
Yeah, we were probably me to that tree that's just slightly off camera.
Damn.
When all that went down. Yeah, I was on the outside making our way. I don't remember the east-west orientation, but I had come over a wall and was making my way towards the entry point, which is a breach that actually ended up going that hit his arm.
Damn.
Yep.
Wow. So did you blow Tyler up?
No, a buddy of mine did though. And I'll be honest with you, that target, it was, the fog of war is absolutely real. People want it to be like surgical precise, and oftentimes it is. But sometimes, like, you're making decisions at the speed of warfare.
Yeah.
And the breacher who put the charge up was saying he thought he heard people on the other side of it, and they were just like, fucking send the breach. And he sent the breach, and it sucked. They were in a hallway. I think it was like a C6 strip charge, which has got so much ass on it. And for people who don't know a lot about explosives or breaching, it just turns it like a fucking magma strip going down a hallway. And anything on the other side of that is just going to get tore up. And
wow.
Tyler was right there.
Wow.
Yeah, so we got medevaced out together, on the bus together, in launch stool, shared a hotel room. He was like getting massages. I was eating Jell-O, watching shit DVDs in my hospital bed. I was like, I'm out of here, dude. I got a Delta ticket. I'm fucking done with this shit.
You flew back to the
commercial,
States?
Yeah.
Wow.
The rotator flight would have been another week. No, I'm not going to do that.
Where did you get shot?
Right in the hip, right in the side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fucking lucky. Didn't hit your fucking artery.
My initial thought before I hit the ground, because it kicked my feet out from underneath me and threw me down. Before I hit the ground, of course, my brain is immediately flooded with all the medical classes. Oh, your entire body's blood mass can go into your quad, and you can just bleed out internally. That's what I thought was going to happen. I was like, oh, I got about 5 minutes. And then, a buddy of mine pulled me around the corridor, cut it open with a set of trauma shears, and there was just some holes, and it was just bleeding. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm okay.
No.
And wrapped it up with some ACE wrap and gauze, Curlex gauze. And there was little birds coming in, throwing people into little birds. I was one of the least injured people on the target.
Yeah, because he said you guys you went to the wrong place first, and then it was like, oh, wait, it's up the street.
We chased a guy down an alley. Yeah. I remember shotgunning doors in a couple buildings over before. We come back. The lights are on in the structure. I'm looking under my nods and like down through them. And I was looking at the window that the guy shot me from. Never saw a curtain move, never saw a shadow, and just,
wow. Yeah.
By the time we got back there, they were ready for sure. And at the same time, it's like, man, maybe we should have known that. Hindsight being 2010, I guess.
Do you miss the excitement of that job, or had you kind of had your fill?
It was exciting, but I actually think it's dangerous to get to the point where that's the only thing that can get your blood pumping.
So base jump.
Well, again, I did that and I really enjoyed it, but I also realized when I got to the place where I couldn't maintain my currency and competency, I had to stop.
Yeah.
Skydiving, far less risk from a proximity to the ground perspective. You have more time. You have a reserve parachute. I know people get a rush out of doing jiu-jitsu, especially when they're first starting and it's new and I can see how people can flip into like a flight or fight mode. If you've never had somebody physically dominate you, you're going to freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
It's amazing, actually. I've seen it a few times where I think I've actually seen jiu-jitsu-induced panic attacks. I didn't recognize it at the time, but that's the same fight or flight. And I think they can grow from it, or they're like, fuck this activity. But I do miss it, but I don't think it's healthy to continuously pursue that particular type of rush, because let's say you do 30 years and you did 20 deployments overseas. And I hope you're going to be okay at the end of that. It changes who you are a little bit. And I don't think it has to be for the worse. I think it can really make people better, but that you can also get lost in that as well. And then you lose the community, right? A lot of people will leave where they were serving and they'll go home, and less of a community, or maybe they don't even feel comfortably be a part of community. The isolation aspect of it, I don't think is good. So it has to be managed.
Yeah.
It has to be managed. I think some people take it too far, and some people are totally fine with it.
What's your like, I'm sure people reach out to you all the time, like, hey, I'm getting out, what's your advice? Do you have like your canned advice?
It depends on what they hit me up with. Like a general canned response is, I hope you're reaching out with enough time to think a little bit about the future. The tough ones are, hey, I get out in a week. What do you think I should do next? Well, I think you should have thought about this about a year ago.
Yeah.
Do your job and be very good at your job. But the light's coming at the end of the tunnel. You can see it. Like, the military is an occupation for generally younger people. And even if you joined at 18 and did 30 years, you still got some time in the hourglass, right? You probably have more in the bottom in the hourglass than at the top. But think about what it is you're going to do next. And what I tell people, I get more emails from people saying, I'm getting ready to join. What advice do you have? And the advice there is
don't.
Well, I'd say make sure you pursue other options and you look at other things that are available, but don't confuse your occupation for who you are. Don't get so intrinsically tied to your sense of who you are that what happens when you can't wear the pin anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it irritates me that people wear tridents as like lapel pins. Mm-hmm. And they have every right to do so because their experiences are theirs and they earn that trident. But why are you wearing that on your suit? What do you want? Are you trying to elicit a response from that? Does it matter that you used to be a team guy? You know what I mean? Like, and again, that's never been my jam. I've never been to one of the reunions. Not that I wouldn't want to go. I just don't have any interest in going. I'm sure I'd be fine if I went there. But I think at some point it's super healthy to put that chapter, like close the book.
Yeah.
Put the book back in the bookshelf and then start writing something else.
Yeah.
You know?
What's that class? Like for me, it's like, I think, and my personal belief is don't make who you are as what you do.
Yeah. That's tough though when your occupation comes with like a thing.
Yeah.
A shiny object or a uniform that you put on, and especially if when you put that uniform on, people treat you differently.
Yeah.
That's a bastard.
Yeah.
It's tough.
You know, I talk about it a lot in kind of recovery circles about the power of hobbies, and I don't think it's pushed as much as it should be in society. I think having hobbies, like genuine hobbies that don't involve you getting paid, transactional, nothing like that. It's just straight like, this is what I enjoy doing. I think it's so important, and you never hear about it. You know, people like and the fucker of it with social media, people who are good at hobbies, it then becomes their job because they just blast it on social media all the time.
Well, because they end up getting sponsored or endorsed for their hobbies, which then makes it their occupation, and then it's just paving the slow road to fucking hell.
Yeah.
The number of people I've met who have these like flowery, happy social media accounts are like, God damn, dude, you are miserable.
Yeah. Oh, dude,
Fuck that.
Any Instagram that I see with like people loving on their spouse and we're great, we're happy, look at us, we're dancing in the fucking, the beaches of fucking Greece. It's like...
I read an article the other day. There was a study done on people who post about their spouses on social media. The ones who post prolifically are generally the ones whose relationships are in the shit.
Yeah.
It's the ones who, like, I think I've posted about Lee and I maybe a couple times. Like, I could not be more stoked about where I am in my life and who I'm with. But I'd rather just share it with that person than fucking put it on Instagram.
I'm the same way.
It's a weird move, right? Like, hey, everybody, I'm sure you're having a bad day, but look at my perfect life. Mm-hmm. I haven't put a filter on this at all.
Yeah, this is my boo. Like, we're great.
It's
like,
weird.
Yeah, it's a very strange like phenomenon. And it's like, what did people do without that? Well, I don't remember. Like, if you were in a shit place with your spouse, were you just walking around to your friends being like, here's a picture of my wife, she's awesome.
What the fuck were people doing before that?
Like, what was the alternative?
Suffering in silence. That's what all men should
do. The bar.
Totally.
Moe's Tavern.
Yeah. Give me a scotch. 4 fingers. Just drinking black. God.
Yeah, social media has done so many weird things for fucking relationships.
Pros and cons. I mean, the ability to connect with somebody or be motivated by somebody you never would have had a touch point with in your life. Really figuring out who's going to carry the boats at all times. That helps.
Yeah.
Even though...
Wait, you haven't made fun of me for the Special Forces show.
Like I said, doesn't surprise me you didn't make it to the end, which is a spoiler alert.
Yeah, just show this off to fucking...
This is coming out in 2 days.
Oh, okay, fuck it then. Yeah, don't. I'm about to get a letter from fucking Fox.
I'm just kidding. He made it all the way through and was selected.
Yeah, I got a beret and a fucking pin.
Those shows are weird.
It was fun. It was just...
Yeah, because it was probably a week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was...
Any week of the job that I used to do is awesome. It's the 17 years of slight irritation and 100... It's if you took the finest grit sandpaper and every day you just have to go across your knuckles. The first week you're fine. But 2 months later when you have a staph infection and pus oozing out, you just don't... You're like, God damn it. That's what's hard about the job.
Yeah.
It's not any one thing. And a lot of the stuff is enjoyable about it. So... We should go get lunch.
Yeah, we should go get lunch and then, you know.
How did we close out episodes of Between Two Trees?
Between Two Trees with Andy and Jack. You know my daughter's name Andy, by the way.
A-N-D-I?
A-N-D-Y.
Interesting.
And we did the Starbucks test. Every time my ex-wife would go and order a drink, and I would say, hey, give the name Andy and see how they write it. And everyone just kept writing A-N-D-Y, even though it was a woman. So we were like, fuck it, let's just make it Andy.
I thought you meant by Starbucks test, if you went in there, you'd just suck dick. But
yeah, I'd go skiing in the bathrooms.
Yeah, downhill skiing in a hot tub, just... That's how we end them.
Yeah,
all right,
there we
till
go.
next time.